Well, hello. Welcome to a Monday at 2:30 p.m. open office hours session. I'm your host, Sean Waters, enjoying a Odell Wolfpicker IPA. Nietzsche famously said that there's two enemies of great culture and great civilization. One of them is alcohol. The other one is Christianity. I love that little bit of historical knowledge and why he said both of them get us to think that things are okay when they're actually not. I am, after a long day of teaching, I am going to disagree with Nietzsche and say that both alcohol and Christianity have their places in the good life, especially in moderation, or at least moderation with alcohol and a proper understanding of the message and teachings of Jesus in the latter. That's not what we're going to get into today. I wanted to go over the ideas of the really big puzzle piece unlock and key to thinking about a lot of writing the good life is about people, and writing to connect here is super, super interesting in the context that when we connect with other people, it's kind of a way of connecting with ourselves, or at least connecting, being able to listen to ourselves is another way or a precursor key part of connecting with other people. Do you agree? Is there anything that you're interested in talking about, connected to connection, related to relation? Let me know. I'm going to open this up to comments and questions and kind of basically go over what's up, Dan McNamara. This is why I want to do this, to see who drops in. Dan is an amazing student and curious person. We are discussing how, and to connect with other people, we really need to connect with ourselves. This is really interesting. I have been teaching my students for a long time in advanced writing and beginning writing, Composition 150 and Composition 300, that in order to write well, you have to provide value for your audience, that you're basically doing something that's valuable for your audience. That's like a revelation in a big sense. You're trying to provide your audience ease, provide your audience time, do something value for your audience, which is a big unlock for undergraduate students oftentimes when they're just trained to write what their instructor wants. They're not providing value for the instructor, and you go into the real world and people only want to read what you're writing if they value it. What's interesting to me now is that I also think that good writers, at least in a creative and authentic way, are really there's a sense that we're writing for an audience of one. And that is ourselves. That a lot of what we need to do in order to write is to connect with ourselves and do things that we would like to see. And that takes a lot of time, particularly, in music or in the arts. It takes a long time to get ourselves to a place where we actually feel even remotely good about what we're creating. But that's kind of the focus of what I wanted to talk about today. And so without further ado, I salute you. Salute. It says, in this fifth week, we go deeper into writing the good life, the collaboration between Stanford Design, which we have been exploring. This is Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, How to Design Your Life, and a kind of creative path of the artist's way, free writing. So kind of still playing with how those two things intersect, but now we're kind of looking about how this connects with our people and finding people and connecting with people and doing the kinds of things that we want to do, or writing the kinds of books we want to read, composing the kind of music that we want to hear, basically creating and writing in a way that provides us joy. This last week, in terms of the serendipity synchronicities that happened for me personally on this theme, is this idea of Maria Popova's Brain Pickings, which is probably the coolest blog I know of. She writes amazingly, and she says that her whole writing process is just her reflecting her own process of reading, thinking, and writing. So she is just reading what she's fascinated by, making these connections, and then writing to share it. So her audience, she's literally not, she doesn't write listicles. She doesn't write things to increase the CPM of her website. She doesn't do things to get people's attention. She just writes what she wants to write that's good for her. And in being good for her, it's naturally good for other people because we're all connected in this really interesting way. So they say, you should be writing the book you want to read or writing the articles that you want to read. And I've been thinking, well, I should be teaching the course that I would want to take. What kind of thing would I want to, what's the course that I would want to take over and over again if I'm thinking about continuing education? And it's in this connection between writing and creativity, kind of like how to be more creative and productive. She has a great, this is from her interview on Tim Ferriss. Maria Popova was like, productivity is a bogus goal. We actually should be worried about presence more than we're worried about productivity, because productivity is like, we might be exploiting ourselves in the name of productivity, and we can't really exploit ourselves in the name of presence. And we could try to be more productive at the expense of our other relationships that matter, our relationship with ourselves. So I'm big into this idea right now of being present first and then productive second, and that this isn't just a new thing in the age of social media or TikTok or whatever. This is like Seneca wrote about this on The Shortness of Life millennia ago, that it's easy for us to get mixed up in what we do with who we are, that we've got to actually focus on the quality of our presence first, on who we want to be first, and then, only then, worry about what it is that we're doing. Because frankly, honestly, that's going to be more important when we go into the great beyond. So I'm thinking about how do we connect with other people and find other people. One, you find communities like educational communities, like people that are in the Wisdom Workshop. A little pitch for the Wisdom Workshop. Next one starts March 24th. There's already 3 people in there, and we're trying to get 9 to 12 is a perfect number to do these workshops. There's 9 in it now, and it's freaking awesome. And I read this, so I'm thinking about creativity, and I found this book, Twyla Tharps, The Creative Habit, Learn It and Use It for Life. Someone recommended it, actually. And it's I highly recommend this book, Twyla Tharps, The Creative Habit, because she goes into this idea, same thing, that if we're going to connect with other people in a way that's meaningful, we have to have a start of connecting with ourselves in a way that's meaningful for us. So we're doing things like the businesses that work are often born out of frustration and aggravation. Like someone has a problem they need to solve, and they want to solve it so bad that they create the thing that then other people are going to find value from. In a certain way, when we are communicating and connecting with other people, which IPA might be good for that. You're wrong, Nietzsche. In moderation, I guess. When we are creating and connecting with other people, we are also, in a big sense, creating and connecting with ourselves. So how do we do that? Well, this gets to one of my other favorite thinkers, Aristotle, which is the framework of what it means to live a good life. And that is a life of flourishing. And that is a life where we are the kinds of people that we want to be. So again, less about productivity and the cults of productivity, less about positivity and the tyranny of happiness, and more about presence, the quality of who we are in the moment, how we want to be in the moment, and how we can listen, connect with ourselves. So if our focus is on presence, if our focus is on being present to ourselves, one of the things we're really also interested in is understanding and getting models for how to be. So we learn, according to Aristotle, we learn by imitation. We find people that we want to be like, and then we try to be like them. So if we are working on writing as a tool to connect, and we're looking at thinking about how we can unlock the power of human connections, because that's really what we're doing here in some big way. We're trying to find the kinds of people that we want to be, and then we're trying to be like them. So here again, we're going to rag on Nietzsche a little bit, who ragged on Christianity. Not the If, for example, if we identify Jesus as a person that we might like to be like, we should be asking, what would Jesus do? And I would presume that Jesus wouldn't be a judgmental prick that judges people based on their beliefs. But point being, well, let's ignore that. Let's say Michael Jordan. I want to be like Michael Jordan. Well, you're not actually going to be a professional basketball player, but maybe you will. What do I know? You can see that one of the things that made Michael Jordan great was the fact that he believed he was great, or that he worked really hard. Or the thing that I liked is that he wants to do something beautiful for people. He wants to do something beautiful for the city of Chicago. Mother Teresa, same kind of way. She wanted to do something beautiful for people. What was that? I'm going to be with people who are dying. Malcolm Muggeridge has a great book called Something Beautiful for God about Mother Teresa's life. It's a freaking mind blower. India's freaking amazing. Point being, if we are writing to connect, what we're doing, one of the things we're trying to do is find people that inspire us that we aim to be like. Interestingly, I have no interest in being a choreographer of dance in New York City, but I'm fascinated by what she's done, and I'm fascinated in how she thinks about creativity, broadly speaking. And I would like to be a person when I am 55 or 60 who's able to think back on my life and be like, what did I do that's creative or not? So the point here is, in terms of like how to do this, step one in a certain regard is to just connect with who we are, which is way easier said than done in a culture of difficulty. It's difficult to do that. Step two, in a sense, if you want to start in a different place, is figure out who would you like to be like and why. Not because of what they do, but because of who they are. And if you can imitate or work towards being like them, if they are, in Aristotle's words, a moral exemplar, i.e. someone that you would like to aspire to be, you can imitate them. What's so far out about social media and the internet right now is that we have access to all of these different people. And by following our passions and inspirations, I brought up Maria Popova's brain pickings earlier. Her blog and newsletter is freaking amazing. And it makes sense. She's been doing it full time, like 90 hours a week for the last 15 years. So it should be pretty good, like millions of subscribers and so on and so forth, and it's incredibly rich. Maria Popova's brain pickings, if you're not already involved in that, it's freaking awesome. For me, like just as an example, Maria Popova came up this week on an interview on Tim Ferriss. For some reason, I wanted to listen to what she was saying, and she was talking about the creative process. Before that, Steven Pressfield was on both Rich Roll and Tim Ferriss. Steven Pressfield wrote The War of Art, and this idea that we're all engaged in this spiritual battle. He believes we're spiritual beings that are fighting this force that he calls the resistance, that we have to be a warrior to overcome that force, to grow and self-actualize ourselves instead of self-sabotaging ourselves, which is a force of resistance. And that is a creative process that's clearly connected to what Twyla Tharp talks about, and the creative habit about just finding and working to get habits and rituals that can help us prepare and actualize what it looks like to be our best selves. So for me this week, in thinking about like, how do I connect with, it's not how do I connect with other people, it's what kinds of people do I want to make connections with? And how can I understand that connection in an age of social media where we're actually all networked and linked up together? And by the way, literature, books, this is like the original social media, or like the original internet, especially when you consider like people have hyperlinks and they link to all their ideas. Like, this gives me a picture of who she is in a way that's, and not just who she is, but what she has to teach in a freaking amazing way, right? So she has given me this perspective and framework to understand creativity and think about education and creative education. And then I see Steven Pressfield's The War of Art, which is all about how to overcome self-sabotage and really actually do the work we're meant to do, which is always faced with resistance, and his whole process of how he thinks about that. And then see Maria Popova's like writing for an audience of one, and we're ready to like come full circle to the point of all this. you write in a certain regard to connect with who you are. And while you're thinking about, and I mean write broadly speaking here, you're doing what you're doing, whatever that is, as a means of connecting with you in some kind of a way. And other people play a key role in this, in that they elucidate or clarify the kinds of people that we want to be. So when I was doing the life design Odyssey plans last week and thinking about, like, do I want to be a CEO of an innovative educational startup and start doing that? Do I want to like go into like creating content more? Do I want to actually like really lock myself in the studio and just focus on making the next record? Do I want to actually do the podcast and do that thing and actually finally release these episodes that are pretty cool and get into audio editing and like what wake up in the middle of the night? It's like, that's not the right question to ask. The right question to ask is, who do you want to be? What kind of a person do you want to be? Who out there is doing something, not like I want to be a CEO or I want to be a freaking YouTube star, I want to be this, that, the other thing. Who is it? Like, what quality of presence do you want to embody? And immediately for me, I'm like, freaking the Buddha is pretty badass, particularly as he laid out 4 heavenly states, or the 4 immeasurable states, which are equanimity, being okay with whatever happens, nice stoic value, sympathetic joy, actually partaking in other people's joy and successes, so you don't actually have to succeed. You can just have joy in other people's success. That's pretty cool. Compassion, caring about the pain of other people, which is interesting that gets translated as a heavenly state because there's no ego or self there. And then 4th, loving kindness. So I'm like, you know what? If I'm a person that really cares about people and wants to do nice things for them and like has that as my inspiration, and I'm a person that's like okay with what happens, has some equanimity, some stoic like approach, which good God I need as an independent musician, and someone that has sympathetic joy, that actually is enjoying the success of other people so that I don't need to feel the pressure to succeed because I can partake in sympathetic joy for their success. And compassion for the fact that, I don't know, for example, mass incarceration is a giant problem in the United States, and we have environmental laws and policies that are toxifying our environment and giving people all kinds of diseases, but no one's talking about it. Or that, like, there's problems and pain out there that I don't want to dismiss, or the tyranny of positivity and like the self-help world of the you can do it. Like, that's whatever. I'm rambling. Thanks, Nietzsche. Point being is that for me, instead of trying to figure out where I was going in terms of like profession wise, I'm trying to make a decision. I'm thinking about like, what kind of a person do I want to be? And then from there, what kinds of things do I want to see in the world? So that's kind of the big idea that was so interesting to me, is about how to write to connect with other human beings and the value of connecting maybe with people that don't agree with us. That's maybe more challenging. I don't know if I even want to go there. To connect with different ways of being, different future versions of ourselves. So if you're interested in doing that in terms of some exercises you might want to do, you might think about putting together what I call a mentor deck, which is just like a deck of cards, for example, or like a board of mentors, you might think. Like if you had a board of people that you could ask for advice, who would be on that board? If you had a board of people of Aristotle's moral exemplars, like who is it that you want to be? You know, I'm actually thinking Jerry Garcia and Jimi Hendrix are on there for me because of the way they lived, like who they were. But I might also put Jim Collins on there, author of Good to Great, self-employed professor, funded his own chair, spent like researched things that he wanted to research, let curiosity kind of rule his life. Just awesome. Or, you know, Twyla Tharp is another one, maybe. Who else would be on there, kind of, in terms of your biggest heroes, What people do you most want to live like and why? What is it about these people that you most admire? Can you like put a finger on that? Find at least 2 other people you'd like to become. Create a deck to remind yourself of who they are, what they do, anything that stands out about them. So, it might be Michael Jordan's will to be the best, or Michael Jordan's belief that he's the best, and somehow how that works, or whatever it is for you. You might, if you really want to, as a writing exercise, if they're alive, you can write them a letter. Like, hey, Kevin Parker, freaking amazing, dude. Like what you're doing with Tame Impala, amazing. Here's what's so amazing about what you're doing with Tame Impala, and now I'm going deep into what I like about Kevin Parker and Tame Impala, and it's like clarifying for me in a way that it might not be otherwise. So you could write them a letter, even if they're not alive. You might write a letter to Buddha. Why not? See what that yields. Or if they're not alive, is someone following in their footsteps that is alive, like Thich Nhat Hanh wrote The Art of Communication, Mindful Communication. So thinking about that is really kind of, that's kind of the idea of this week, of thinking about how we can write to connect to ourselves and connect with other people. What's interesting, the second, like if we want to turn this into professional communication, and I'm almost running out of time, when you find people that you want to be like, you're immediately in community with other people that want to be like that person. It's like, if I want to be like Jesus, I can find people that like Jesus. If I want to be like Buddha, I can find people that like Buddha. If I want to make records like Kevin Parker, I can find people that make records like Kevin Parker. If I want to make, so you're basically as a way to find your community. I'm curious, basically, looks like, I don't know your name. Is this Sharon? Creature, which actually is a really cool name now that I say it out loud. Not that it wasn't cool before, but it's cool that it's actually Creature. Anyway, if there's questions about or anything that is interesting to you about this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. That's kind of the big idea that I had for this week, was how to use writing as a tool to connect to ourselves in doing the kind of work that we want to do, that we find valuable, regardless of how productive or successful it is, and using that partially as a template to connect with other people, which is what we're kind of going to be looking at next week in terms of like business professional communication, to get our ideas out there, writing effectively, writing without bullshit, writing without pretense, writing without arrogance, writing with humility, writing with honesty, and like who we are, what we value, what our why is, why we're doing what we're doing, what we care about, all that kind of a thing. So that's that. Final kind of plug is that I still believe that we learn best in groups, and online education has never worked for me because it just doesn't seem as connected as it could be. And so if you are looking for other people that you want to connect with, or that you're looking for other opportunities to connect with other people, that's why I basically created these workshops. And the next one starts on March 24th. You can comment, direct message. I'll also put my phone number here down in the comments, and you can text to chat about it. But I'm super stoked on how the first one's going, and I'd be super interested to talk to you about what you're working on or what you're not working on, and how I might be able to use this framework. Basically, like I said earlier, I got really interested in this idea of not only writing the book you want to read or building the product that you want to see in the world, but like teaching the course that you want to teach. So about a year ago, I really started thinking in depth, what if I could teach anything, what would I teach, and how would I teach it, and where would I teach it? And the answer that I got pretty clearly in working with that is, I want to teach practical philosophy skills, because I do seriously believe that philosophical frameworks are super valuable. They've been amazingly valuable for me. And the only reason I didn't do a PhD in philosophy is I thought academic philosophy was so stuffy and abstract and disconnected from practical day-to-day living that I didn't want to do it. I thought philosophy is more about a way of getting practical perspectives and frameworks to see the world in new ways and to live differently. And that's kind of really what I realized, that's my favorite part about teaching, is trying to share perspectives. And, this model of being a midwife to other people's education. Like, as a teacher, I don't really have that much to teach, except like to provide a framework for people to teach themselves, or at least that's the kind of educational framework I find the most inspiring. So thinking about like what I want to teach is at this intersection of philosophy and writing, of how we can use writing to unlock, put together, re-understand, re-see. It's a terrible joke. See ourselves in ways that are valuable or helpful. So that's kind of the idea. That's what's going on. I feel my throat is tired from a full day of teaching and speaking. So let me know if you have any questions. Dan, thanks, man. Thanks. I like that phrase, food for thought. It is these ideas are not only meant to be consumed, but digested, put into practice. I'll have to reach out and chat about where you're at. I'm curious. And appreciate. Thanks for hanging out. And I think I'm going to be doing these at 2:30 p.m. Seems like a good time to hold myself accountable and box some time for them. So thanks very much. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for saying thanks, Dan. And until next time, good luck unlocking, connecting with yourself and with other people who are interested in becoming the same types of people that you're interested in, as you create what you would like to see in the world, which I would think is better people in the world, which is also, so yeah. Thanks. Props goes out to Nietzsche, Twyla Tharp, and The Art of Creativity, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, Designing Your Life, Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, and everybody else out there. Thanks for being who you is. Take care. Later.